Well, hello everybody, here we are. It's been a long time, and this is something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time now, and either it's going to work or it's not going to work, and that is okay. I have this book, right, and it's a pretty cool book, and I've always wanted to transpose these designs and these ideas into CAD and then either go and make them in my workshop out of wood or actually 3D print them and see how they come out. Now the downside with this is it is an American book and all of the dimensions are imperial, so in inches and stuff like that. And obviously here in Australia we deal with metric millimetres, etc. So what I've done, and I know that I can actually here in Solidworks change my settings to be imperial so that it works in inches, etc. But I want to try and be able to make it as accurate as possible in millimetres for if I do go into the workshop and build it. So I've kind of diligently gone through every single drawing here and converted the dimensions to millimetres or rounded it up. As I said, I know that I can type in, 1 3/8 inches into Solidworks and, if I've got my settings set at millimetres, it'll pop it up into millimetres, but it won't always be, it'll be a really random number, which won't necessarily work in the workshop. So what I want to do is I want to start with these designs and assemble them together and see how they work. And then the other thing about learning CAD and building and creating parts and then assembling them is that you can easily modify and adjust dimensions, etc. to make things fit. So without further ado, in this book there are multiple different categories, and I'm actually going to start with the vehicles category, which is chapter 6. There is no difference, but basically what happens is we're going to create all the individual parts which combined together can make any of those 2, 4, 6, 7 cars. So there might be a few chapters, there might be a few videos that go with this. We're not going to do it all in one foul swoop. But the first thing we're going to start on is creating the chassis. Okay, the chassis is our most important part to this. If we don't have a chassis, what do we have with a car? So let's do this live. I haven't done a rehearsal on this yet. So let's do this live and let's work together and see what we can achieve. Now, it basically looks like it's the creation of 4 pieces of wood cut and put together. So, here we go. This is a little bit nerve-wracking, to be fair. I'm going to create, let's start on the front plane, and let's go to our center rectangle here. Now I'm making probably a really stupid assumption that we all have the basics of CAD in our little repertoire. So we're going to draw this rectangle here. Now you can either come up to the Smart Dimension tool up the top here, or in my graphics area here, I generally right click and go straight to the floating toolbar and select Smart Dimensions there. It's just a quick shortcut. Now the overall dimension of this piece is, what was it? It was 5 7/8, which if I rounded off it was 150 millimetres. But it was a rebate at either end of 3 millimetres either end. So I've got to take 6 millimetres off of 150. So we're basically going to make that 144 millimetres. And the thickness of this material, now can I remember, looks like it's 12.5 millimetres tall. So we're going to make that 12.5. And it is, again, it looks like it was 12.5 thick. So we're going to go features and extrude, and we're going to extrude that oopsie, 12.5. And then just green tick that. So this is piece 1. Now what we're going to do is when we save this first piece, we're going to set up our folders. So we won't worry about that right now. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at my drawing that I've got here, and I need to be looking at it from the front view. And what I'm looking at, and this is a little bit confusing, but I'm looking at this one here. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to cut out a bit of a rectangle here. So let's select this front surface here. And we're going to go back to our sketch tab, and we're going to select our sketch button. So now we're back into our sketch mode. And it's a little bit random, but we're going to get now the corner rectangle tool. And we're going to, it's a very confusing drawing, so I think you guys should be glad that it's me trying to work it out, not you. We've got this rectangle here, so I'm going to right click and go there and make that going to be, according to my dimensions, rounded to 35. And again, we're going to go, it's 55 mils right to the end, but we need to take 3 millimeters off of their drawing. Their drawings are really bad. So we're going to go to the end here, and 55 less 3 will be 52. So that's it there. Now we've also got a couple of axle holes that we want to put into this piece, and because we're extrude cutting this rectangle out anyway, oh, hang on, we need to work out the depth. So let's zoom in, and this line here, that depth is 3 millimeters. Whoops. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our axle holes on here as well. So we need to get our circle tool, and we're just going to, I'm not picking any particular point at this point in time. I think it's going to be pretty much center. So I'm just going to line it up on that center reference from the origin. And each dowel hole or axle hole are 4.5 millimeters. So we're going to make them 4.5 and 4.5. Now I could add a relationship to these two dowel holes, so if I ever change one, the other changes at the same time. But what we'll do for now is we'll just keep it relatively simple. And these dowel holes are, I didn't do the conversion. So let's go back to 3/4 is 19 millimeters. 19 millimeters less 3 millimeters is 16 millimeters. So we're going to go 16 in from there. And I'm going to make the assumption that it's, oh no, I'm not going to make an assumption. There is a dimension between the center points. Oopsie. Center point of that one to the center point of that one. Where's my dimension tool? Come on, fella. That's what happens when you do it all live. That is 100 millimeters between those two center points. Okay, that could be interesting. And yeah, as I said, there's no set height up from the base that these axle holes are. So we just want to fully define these holes. So let's just set a height, and let's say 6.25. I'm happy with that, so we'll tick that, and we'll make this one 6.25, and we'll tick that. So now you can see they're fully defined because the circles have turned black. This is what we're going to extrude cut. So now we're just going to go over to the features tab. We're going to move along to the extruded cut button. And I'm just going to simply orbit this and make sure that arrow is dragged all the way through, because that's what we want to do, and we're going to tick. So this is part of the design. Now the next thing we want to do with this is there seems to be a dowel pin that sits up. Now I'm looking at the drawing here. Let's see if we can have a look. There's a dowel pin sticking up. Alright, so it's not actually cut in, it's not dotted lines, so it's sticking up. So we're going to locate this top surface. Now what I want to do is I want to go normal 2. So I can either go up to the heads up display here and select top view, or this is a surface I want to draw on. I'm going to click it, and in my floating toolbar here, I'm going to click this little normal 2 button. Boom, there it is. And what I'm going to do is, to me, this looks like it's dead center in this picture here. They've kind of given me some rough dimensions. Let's go sketch and create our sketch. Let's get our circle tool and let's find, now if I hover over, and I'm not clicking anything, if I hover over this, either the left side or the right side, and I find that dot, if I bring that reference along, when they intersect like that, if I click and draw a circle, and we're going to smart dimension that circle, and that's a 3mm dowel. It's pretty small to me, but hey, who knows what this will work out to be. Now it also tells me that for some random dimension, there is a dimension here that says 11/16 from that edge. Out of interest, I'm going to put 11/16 and IN for inches. Yeah, that doesn't work. That just does not work, sunny shines. So let's undo that. I'm going to right click on that dimension and delete it. I don't like that because it does look dead center, and 11/16 inches. Let's have a look what it says on here. 11/16. I see that says 17.5 thereabouts. Whereas if I do it back on here, oopsie, and I go 11/16 IN. Oh, it did work that time. Okay, go figure. But I want to change that. I'm going to round it to 17.5 because we're kind of wanting to make things a bit rounded. And we're going to extrude that. I'm going to make sure that that is still centered to that. 6.25, I'm happy with that. It's turned black. We're going to features and extrude that up 3mm. So if I spin that around, we can see that dowel pin is going to be level with that top surface. Perfect. All right. I'm believing this to be, we need 2 of these pieces for the chassis. So what we're going to do is we're just going to save it once, and then when we go to assemble it, we'll put that part in twice. So let's start to create our little network of folders. So we're going to go File, Save to this PC. Come on, there we go. And look, I'm going to go, you're going to have a folder. And I've created my own subfolders. Don't worry about that. But I want you, wherever you want to save this, whether it's on your desktop, wherever it is, create a new folder. And we're going to call this Transforming Toys. Because I'm hoping that I actually, let me spell that correctly first, I'm actually hoping that I become a little bit more diligent enough, consistent enough to be able to actually make this a series. Now under our Transforming Toys, we're going to create a folder that is called Vehicles, because that's the name of this chapter. And under the Vehicles folder, we're going to go here and we're going to create a Chassis folder. And bear with me because it's going to be a lot of parts and a lot of pieces, and we want to really have good file management. So we're going to have a Chassis folder. Under that Chassis folder, we're going to call this Side Rails. Okay, boom, Side Rails. A bit long-winded, but now we've got our folder set up. Now what we want to do is we want to create the 2 ends. So again, if we have a look at this picture, and over here is the guy in the workshop, and you can see it's rectangular. So we want to create the 2 little short ends, so we're going to join the long ends together. And if I had already pre-done these parts, I would have pre-done some working drawings, and I'd be chucking them onto the computer screen for you to look at instead. But I think that might be part of these tutorials as well, is we'll do those drawings together. So that's why I'm just doing a little bit of a book story with you. So you can either close this part off, which not in the top right hand corner, but in the graphics area here, you can press that X button, or we can leave it open, it doesn't really matter. But either way, we are now going to create a new part. So let's go File, New, Part, OK. So again, let's click on over here. We're going to go to the Sketch tab, choose the Sketch button, and we're going to draw on the front plane again. We can, if we want to be complicated and difficult, we could choose the different planes to draw on, which would make assembly a bit easier. But right now we're just going to do it this way. So we need to create the two ends, and the two ends are basically going to be one block of material with a dowel hole in it for the main center locking rod, and two rebaited butt joints. So let's go to our center rectangle tool again, because I like to use that for our centerpieces. And our piece is going to be, let's get this correct, because the way they've got these drawings are so complicated. Let's make that 38 millimeters in length, and let's make that 12.5 millimeters wide. And I believe we're going to extrude that 12.5 millimeters as well. So we've kind of got a rectangular prism. So we'll go back to our front view here. And what we're going to do now is we want to sketch on this surface. And so we select it, we go to our Sketch tab, Sketch button, and now we're going to get our corner rectangle tools, and we're going to start in left or right, it doesn't really matter, but where the orange dot is, we're going to click on that and drag it down to, you'll see the bottom line highlights orange. We're going to click, do the same over this side, click and drag, boom. And while we're doing our drawing, before we chuck in our dimensions, let's grab the circle tool, which is going to go right in the middle there, and let's start dimensioning. So I just right click in the graphics area, select our smart dimension tool. This center circle is going to be a diameter of 6.5. We are going to make the material that made let me think, my brain has to think here, which is really complicated. Brain, think brain, think brain, think. Golly, why is that only that? Did I do 12 millimeters? Yeah, I did do 12.5, didn't I? Yeah, okay. Yeah, my brain is off with the fairies. This needs to be, that's not going to work out. Because that is 12.5 millimeters thick. Oh, what have they done to me? What have they, okay. I see what they've done to me. They've confused me. We need to go back and modify some dimensions, and that is okay. Alright, this is going to be 9.5. Oi, that looks big. That's going to be 9.5. Okay, so we're going to sit on 9.5 on this one, and then we're going to go back to that other rail, and well, no, actually, before we do that, we're going to modify a few things. So now this is going to go, and it's going to stop 3 millimeters from the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the features, and we're going to go to extruded cut, and I want to give it a set parameter. So if I change anything, it doesn't change the cut. So we're going to go over on the left here where it says blind. We're going to click on that, and we're going to choose offset from surface. So if we select that, what happens now is is going to ask us what surface we want to offset from. So we want to offset from this surface, and we want the cut to go all the way except 3 millimeters. So here where the dimension is, we're going to type in 3 and press enter, and you'll see now that preview, well, apart from the dowel hole we're going to have to actually make all the way through, so that's a little bit awkward. That goes all the way through bar 3 millimeters, so we're going to click that. Now what I'm just going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to highlight this sketch again, and I'm going to do extrude cut, but I'm going to change this to blind, and now I'm going to choose selected contours. So that was a bit quick, wasn't it? Alright, so what I did was, I'll go back, this cut extrude, I expanded it and selected the sketch. I'm going to do extrude cut, and it's found that we already did the offset. We're not going to do that this time. I'm going to change that to blind, but we don't want these two side rectangles selected, so I'm going to go selected contours and expand that, right click on the sketch and delete, and now all I'm going to choose is the circle. Okay, I've just left clicked in the circle. I'm just going to click and drag that arrow all the way through. Boom. Okay. Now what I need to do is change how thick this original extrude was, and we're going to have to do that on the other piece as well. So the very first extrude, because their drawings were confusing, we're going to change that from, I think it was what, 12.5, we're going to change it to 9.5. So we're going to right click on the icon and we're going to go to edit feature, and where it says 9.5 we're going to change it, 12.5 we're going to change it to 9.5 and green tick. So that looks better, if that's a word, and in my world it is. So that looks better. So let's go file and save to this PC, and we're going to call this end rails. Alright, now I need to go back, or we need to go back, and we need to change the thickness of the side rails. For me, I've still got it open in the background, and I can easily click back to it. Now if you've closed it, you're just going to have to go file, open, and then open the side rail. For me, I've got it in the background, so I can go to window and I can choose. So if you've already got it still open in the background, side rails, and there it is there. And what we need to do is, and this could be interesting because it might change a few dimensions, but we'll have a look, we'll see what happens. We need to change this thickness here. So this first extrude, we're going to right click on the icon and go to that first button that says edit feature, and we're going to change that to 9.5. Now that may change the location of that center dowel pin, so let's green tick, and yes, you'll notice that dowel pin now is not centered. So let's go to our top view, and if you click on the dowel you can see that the extrude over here is the feature that created it. If we click on this little arrow to open the drop down, there's the sketch. So we need to just edit that sketch, and all we have to do is just edit the location of it. So let's right click and edit sketch, and you'll see we don't need to necessarily change this 17.5, and we're leaving that there. We'll see what happens, but we do want to change this 6.5. Now I want it in the center of this piece, so I'm actually going to right, like where the number is, I'm going to right click on the number and say delete. And the next thing, I'm going to create a relationship here, a horizontal relationship. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover on this line here over, and I'm going to find that dot that appears right there in the middle, and I'm going to left click on that dot. Now I'm going to grab my little magic pointy finger, and I'm going to press and hold the control button down on my keyboard, and then I'm going to find the center point of the circle, and I'm going to left click, and then I can let go of the keyboard. And what you'll notice is both little dots now are blue, and on the left hand side there's a properties manager open up, and we can add a relationship. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a horizontal relationship. So if you click that, you'll notice the circle drops down nice and level with that center point. So even if we went to change any dimensions from now on, it's always going to be level with that center point. So we're going to green tick that. We're going to exit sketch, so you can either exit in the top left or this little faded exit sketch icon in the graphics area. Exit that, and there's our pin. Centered again. Everything else is good. So let's just press the save button just to make sure that we've resaved that. So what have we achieved? Doesn't look like much, does it? But we've achieved a side rail, an end rail, and the last two parts for the chassis here is a pin and a wheel. Alright, we only need to create one wheel, and when we assemble it, we'll assemble it 4 times, insert it 4 times, and the same with the pin. So let's create the pin first. This is another, and again I'm leaving these items open, I'm not in a rush to get rid of them. So we're going to go File, New, Part, and OK. Now the pin is going to be, there's a few different ways we could create this pin, and they've missed a particular dimension of this pin, and I'm going to show you. This is the little pin that we're going to make here. They've actually missed what the radius is of that top rivet sort of head, so we're going to kind of make it up. Alright, that's the way I roll. So let's go to the sketch tab, sketch button, choose the front plane. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a center line, not the solid line. So where the line tool is, we're going to click the drop down and we're going to choose center line. So grab that little tool. We're going to start at the origin. So find that little dot there and we're going to left click and drag a line across. Now, I mean, the dimension that we're going to need for this is about 22 millimeters. So, you know, if you want to play with guessing, that's okay. When you left click again, you'll see the line is still attached. 2 ways to detach that. Just come out from here and double click on your mouse, or if you're a little bit slow, press escape like on the top left of your keyboard, just the ESC escape button. Let's dimension that 22 millimeters, and now what we're going to do is we're going to revolve this in a minute. All right, there's a few different ways you could do it, but we're going to revolve this. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to roughly draw a line like that and a line like that. Now again, here it is, still attached, and double click. So all I did, I'm going to Control Z to get out of that just to show you again. Line tool, and here's the orange dot. When I click my mouse to draw a line, I don't hold my mouse button down. Some people do, I don't. I tend to just single left click and release, move my cursor, single left click and release, move my cursor, single left click, release, move my cursor, single left click. Then I've got this little jobby here and I double click just to get rid of it. If you're too slow with your double click and you do happen to actually create another line, you can just escape on your keyboard and then Control Z will get rid of that last line. Now we need to create a bit of a rivet curve rounded head here. So up in our drawing tools, right smack bang there in the middle, there's a 3-point arc tool. If you click the drop down, you'll see that there's a few arc options. But yeah, we want the 3-point arc tool. We're going to come over to this last orange dot that we drew, so we're going to left click on that dot. Now you'll see that my arc is going a little bit, like I want it to go the other way, so I'm not worried about that at the moment. I'm going to left click on this end, and then you'll see I can come over here and I can make a point. Okay, don't get too cut up about how exactly this is going to look. As I said, there's no dimensions there, so we're just playing with it. Let's get our Smart Dimension tool. Now the full diameter of this rivet is 4.5 millimeters, so half this, we're only dealing with a half on this side. We're not dealing with the whole diameter, so we're going to go and click here, and half of 4.5 is 2.25. Boom. And they haven't exactly given us a size that this should be. So I'm kind of guessing, you know, like, it doesn't need to be much bigger. So I'm actually going to just say at the moment, let's make it 3. And we'll go with that. And then this horizontal line here, see how my center line is still attached and I'm getting this middle dimension here. I'm just going to press escape on my keyboard and it will deselect that middle line. Anyway, we're going to make this dimension, and I'm just going to see what 18 millimeters looks like. No, I don't like 18 millimeters, so I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to make it 20. Yeah, still not a fan of that. Let's try in the middle, 19. Let's see what happens. I think I'm also not a fan of this 3 millimeters. So let's double click that and let's see what 4 does. 4's not too bad. That'll make, yeah. Okay, hey, we can come back and change it if we don't like it. So let's just say that we're happy with that. This curve here is still blue, which means it hasn't been fully defined. So we can just click on it and we can make it a radius. Let's just define it and make it a radius of 17. And now our sketch is all black. It's all fully defined. We're going to now revolve this on that center line. So if we go to features, now because that center line sort of signifies the image isn't fully closed, when we go to revolve, it's going to say, hey, look, your sketch is open. We can't revolve it like this. Would you like us to automatically close the sketch so then we can revolve it? And I say, why, thank you very much. Yes, let's do that. Boom. So there's our revolve. We're going to tick that. Now, I'm not overly happy with how pointy the end of that rivet is right now. But for the purpose of this exercise, we'll deal with it and we'll come back to it later. So let's go File, Save to this PC, and we're going to call this a rivet. Not what a frog says. They say rivet, rivet. We're making a rivet. And the last thing we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, and anybody else that's watching this, is we need to create some wheels. So again, I'm leaving the rivet there. I'm going to go File, New, Part, OK, Sketch, Sketch, Front Plane, and obviously the shape of a wheel is round. So we're going to get our circle tool. We're going to start in the middle, a small hole, big hole, Smart Dimension tool. That center hole is a diameter of 5.5. The outer diameter is 32. Oh, that's a big wheel. Again, if we don't like it when the time comes, we can change it. And they've nominated the thickness of this material to be 11 millimeters. So that is the wheel that they've told us to create. And you know what? That's the wheel we're going to go with. And that's really good. We can do some modifications later. We can put some fillets on there if we want to make it any prettier. You know, from a CAD perspective, we can detail this right up. If we 3D printed it, we could detail it right up and the 3D print will come out really good. If we go into the workshop and we make it with wood, it depends on your level of skill as to whether we just simply use a hole saw and drill out 4 wheels, simple, basic, or whether you go into some more detail and really make these wheels look fancy. But anyway, let's have a go at seeing how good we are with regards to assembling this together. So we have 4 components. let's go. So this time we're going to go File, New, and here is the assembly. So we're not creating a part anymore. Now we're going to bring up parts together and create an assembly, which is the chassis. So let's click that and click OK. Now, the beautiful thing about with keeping all the parts open in the background is I go to Insert Components and you'll see, oh, did I not save my wheel? Oh my goodness, that was very stupid of me. Let's go back to part 4. My bad. Hopefully you guys saved it, but I forgot. So I've just gone back to the part and saved that wheel. Now the wheel is saved. Now I'm going to go File, New, Assembly, and Insert Components. And here they are because they're already open in the background. If you actually close them off, there will be nothing in this box here, and you'd have to go to Browse and navigate and find the parts. I would like to put in the end rails first. Now we're going to need 2 of those. So if I just come over here and click 1 in there, then I'll have to go back and click the Open Insert Components box, blah, 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 blah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this Keep Visible pin here, up in the top. Before I select anything in here, I'm going to click this Keep Visible. So now when I put this in, and I'm going to flick it over, you'll see I've got the little XYZ triad in the bottom corner there, and I've already got a visual of how I want this to sit when I assemble it. So I actually wanted to spin this on the Y axis so it faced this way. So I just clicked 1 rotation of the Y and it faced that way. Now if I left click, boom. Now what happens is that's locked in place, and you'll see here's my next end piece. And again, I want it to mirror that other one. So again, I want to rotate it on the Y. So I'm going to click the Y, but I don't want it like that. So I'll click it again and again. And there it is. It's facing that way. Beautiful. Now, I don't want a 3rd one of those. I only wanted 2. So I'm going to come over here and deselect the end rail. And we'll just scrolling my scroll wheel. I now want my side rails in. So there's my side rail. I'll highlight it. When I bring my side rail in, alright, it's in. Okay, the end rails are too close together, but that is ideally on the X rotation or the X axis that I want it to be in. So I'm going to click 1 there, and I'm going to click 1 there. And let's assemble this first before we insert the wheels and the rivets. Okay, so I'm going to come over and see there's still a 3rd one there. I'm just going to green tick. Now, the very first one you put into an assembly is fixed. If you hold your left mouse button on it and you try and drag it, it won't move. And it's also shown in the feature manager tree over here by this F. Okay, so that says it's fixed in place. So everything else will move around accordingly. So we can click and drag that to kind of, but see, when you sort of sit and you go, oh yeah, I want that there, that looks good, and that there. When you go into like your 3D sort of mode, it doesn't line up. It looks silly, but that's just part of the world of 3D. We need to assemble all of this together. So how we do that is we've got this little button up here called Mate. And it's like a little paper clip. And if you can think of, you know, you've got a pile of paper and you want to put it all together. And how do you hold it together? If you haven't got a stapler, but you've got paper clips. So you put the paper clip on, it holds it together. I guess that's why they use the paper clip. We're going to select the Mate button. Now, it's kind of automatically defaults to a coincident mate. And what I mean by that is it kind of lines up. So if I go click on that top surface and that top surface, boom, you'll see that they line up. And you'll go, but hang on a minute, I didn't want it to sit there. But that's okay. We wanted those top surfaces to line up. So we'll green tick. Now what we want to do is if I hold my mouse button down and spin this around, we want that end surface to line up with this surface. Boom. See how it's moved and it's lined up? So we're going to green tick. Now the trick is I can't get to that inside surface on that side. So what I can do is I can hold my mouse button down and just drag that out of the way. and it hasn't selected anything because it kind of registered that I was dragging something out of the way. And now what I want to do is I want to click in there and click in there. Boom, that's lined up. Beautiful, easy peasy lemon squeezy. So let's do the same with the other one. We want to click that top surface, and that top surface, there it is, lined up, green tick. And I want to click that surface, and you'll see it's lined up, tick. And again, I want to just click and drag. As long as you click and drag, nothing will stay selected. If for some reason you select it and you go, oh, hang on a minute, no, I didn't want that one selected, come over to the blue box, right click, clear selection. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click this one, and boom, they're locked together, green tick. And the last thing on our chassis we need to do is fix up this end. And it's pretty simple because everything's symmetrical, we're really only going to need to mate it to one of those side rails. So let's go top, tick, side, tick. Now I'm going to I could drag that out the way, or if I leave it there, I know that I want this back surface to line up with this back surface. Is that right? No, it's not right. That's wrong. So I'm going to right click in here and clear selections, and I will... now it's doing something to me. There we go. I don't know what happened there. Mate, I want that surface and that surface and green tick. Alright. So there's the start of our chassis. Now we just need to insert our wheels and our rivets, and then that's our chassis basically done. So let's go to insert components. Now we want to make sure this drawing pin is selected. We want wheels. We want 4 wheels. So we're just going to go boom. Oh, really? Pin, wheel, boom, boom, boom. And then we want to deselect the wheel and we want to get the rivets, and we're going to go boom, 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 boom. Now it looks like we've kind of put everything roughly where it should be. I'm going to green tick, but when we spin it, you'll see it's not quite where it should be, but meh. Okay, we're going to just do this as a bit of a repetitive exercise. There is a simpler way to do it, but I would really like to just do this as a repetitive exercise for you to get the hang of doing the mates. Okay, so we're just going to go mate, and this time we're going to mate circles in circles. So if you see, I don't want to go to the edge of a circle. All right, hold there, mouse. See where just the edge of the circle is highlighted? I actually want to go inside the circle. So you'll see like the cylinder is highlighted. So we're going to highlight that, and it's going to be the same on here. So we're going to highlight that. That lines up, green tick. And we're going to line up all the wheels first. So cylinder, cylinder, green tick, spin this, cylinder, cylinder, green tick, and cylinder, cylinder, and green tick. Alright, now as you see, the wheels are all a little bit, inside the chassis. Well, that won't work. And I'm gonna offset these wheels so that they actually stick out a little bit. So how we do that? Pretty simple. Again, everything's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. We're going to click this surface here. Alright, that's the outside surface of the chassis. And I'm just going to spin this around, and I want to click the inside surface of this wheel. Now what that's going to do is it's going to make the wheel to the exact surface of that. But I want to just offset it. I want to just bring it away from that surface a bit. So what I'm going to do, and there's 2 locations in which you can do this. You've got this little floating box here, and right in the middle is a distance tool. So you can click that, or over on the left hand side here underneath the padlock there's another little distance tool, or you can click that. Either way, it doesn't really matter. And we're going to, now we can actually type a distance in. So we're going to type in 1mm and press enter. Now, depending on which way this goes, this dimension could either make the wheel go in further into the chassis piece, or it could bring it out away from the chassis piece. So let's type in 1mm and press enter. Aha! If we have a look, it's actually gone into the chassis. So what I do then is underneath where I typed in 1mm, you'll see there's a little tick box that says flip dimensions. I'm going to click that, and you'll see now it actually pops that wheel out away from the chassis. We're happy with that. We're going to green tick. And that's going to be the process for the other 3 wheels. So we're going to click the inside surface of that wheel, the outside surface of that chassis piece, and then we're going to set a dimension. So we're going to type in 1. The wheel is still inset to the chassis, so we're going to untick the flip dimension box, and it's on the outside. Green tick. Let's go up to this one. Surface, surface, dimension tool 1, flip dimension, green tick, inside, outside, dimension tool 1, and untick, green tick. So now our wheels are now in place. They're set with the axle holes on the chassis. They're 1mm out from the chassis, so realistically they should spin. Now all we need to do is attach the rivets, and the rivets are similar where they're, there goes a motorbike, temporary Australian going faster than he should. We're going to I'm a motorbike rider, so you know it just frustrates me when motorcyclists aren't doing the right thing. We want to put this rivet into the wheel. So the same thing, we don't want to select like an edge, we want the whole cylinder. So we're going to click the cylinder and click the inside of the wheel. And for me, oh look, see what's happened? For me, that rivet, the head of the rivet's gone into the chassis, and I actually want the rivet on the outside of the chassis. So I have to flip that. Now if your rivet head is on the outside of the wheel, perfect, you don't have to do anything. But if it's on the inside of the chassis like mine's just done it, I have to flip it. 2 ways you can do that. Here in the little floaty box, you'll see there's this highlighted 2-way arrow. You can click that. If you don't see that one, if you come over to the left hand side into the feature tree, the property manager tree, at the bottom there you'll see mate alignment. And you can, whichever one's highlighted, you'd select the opposite one. So if I select the opposite one, boom, you'll see the rivet has now flipped. So that's what I want. So I'm going to green tick that. And then I'm going to spin this a bit because I want the flat inside surface there of the rivet to mate with the outside surface of the wheel. Okay, and green tick. And you'll see that rivet actually runs all the way through into the chassis. If I highlight it, you can see how it's running into the chassis. One thing I'm going to check though is the diameter of the axle hole that we put on that chassis piece and the diameter of the rivet. I'm not sure if they're the same, but we'll deal with that later. So let's go about this process. As you can see, all my rivets are floating around everywhere where they shouldn't be, but that's okay, we can make that happen. Let's click the outside of this rivet. Holy moly, hang on a minute. It's tried to line itself up with something else because I'm just going to red X out of that for a second, just to bring that rivet back to where it was. Now what I'm doing here, I've decided I want to try and position this rivet roughly where I want it. And if I hold my right mouse button down, and I can actually orbit that piece. So I've kind of got it roughly where I want it. I'm going to go back to the mate button, outside cylinder, inside wheel, tick, outside wheel, flat surface there, tick. So there's another rivet done. Riveting of the rivets. And this one here, if I click that outside surface, click that inside surface, It's jumped over there. Perfect. And it's in the right orientation, so I don't need to flip the orientation. Green tick. Flat surface. Flat surface. Green tick. I think something has happened along the way. My mouse settings have changed. Normally my scroll wheel operates the opposite way around, but I don't know what's going on. Cylinder surface. There's my rivet and it's in the right orientation. Green tick. Boom. See, because I always scroll away first. Boom. There we go. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to red X now out of the mate. Now, the one thing I want to check is I can't remember. We made the rivet was a diameter of 4.5, and I can't remember what the side rail holes were. So what we're going to do first is we're going to save this assembly. So let's go File, Save to this PC, and we're going to call this Chassis, because that's what it is. And it's under our chassis folder. Boom. Now I'm just going to double check that hole there. So I can either go Window and find the side rails. And what I'm going to do is, there's the cut that made that sketch. I'm just going to edit that sketch. Okay, so our rivet is 4.5 millimeters in diameter. These holes are 4.5 millimeters in diameter. So, you know, in the scheme of things, that should work because the hole in the center of the wheel is 5.5 millimeters. So realistically, that's got a, you know, like a bit of a give so the wheels can rotate and the axles don't. So will that work in the scheme of things? Who knows? If we go into the shed, you're probably going to have to really try and hammer something in. You might not have dowel for the rivets that are 4.5 millimeters in diameter, so you might have to adjust your drill hole sizes depending on the size of the dowel that you've got. But anyway, we'll see how we go. So I'm happy with how everything is right now. If I go Window and go to my chassis, I'm happy with that. And I'm just going to hit the save button again and just say save all again, just to make sure that everything's good. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the start to our vehicles. I hope that worked for you.